And we are live. Good morning. Welcome. It's Friday. It's finally Friday. And I'm Jill. That's Deb, if we're arranged the way I think we are. We are the Friday Grief Chat. And today we have two amazing people who agreed really last minute to be guests and to talk about all things caregiver loss, caregiver grief. One is Lynn, who is a therapist at Central Counseling Services and my go-to. She's the one who just sort of ah, she's the Deb of CCS, right? And same and a sense of humor and also a writer. And she's actually high school buddies with Mike. I just found that out. And Mike just moved to New Orleans with his wife to be near the kids. And he is the caregiver for his wife, who is a former registered nurse. And she was the charge nurse and nursing director. And Deb, as you can see, Mike is also a registered nurse. So we've got lots of crisscross applesauce here.
Yeah.
But we wanted to talk about what it's like to experience caregiving and the grief of caregiving. And I will tell you, I just spent yesterday with at a caregiver conference in our local community and did a thing on grief and caregiving and was ambushed afterwards by the number of people saying, why doesn't anyone talk about this? Why doesn't anyone acknowledge how hard it is? Why doesn't anyone acknowledge that caregivers get tired of hearing, I can't do that? That's so hard when you don't have a choice. Why doesn't anyone say there's 1,000 losses, not one that you're waiting for? Why doesn't anyone say this just stinks, but I'm so glad I get to do this because I value the time with my loved one? And so I would like us to talk about all those things, and so would all of them.
Okay.
Mike, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit and tell our folks?
Yeah, my name is Mike Czosnek, and my wife is named Rebecca, and this is Oliver. He's a great dog, by the way. And again, Lynn and I went to high school together. I think we graduated in '77.
In Maine, by the way. He's in New
Yes.
Orleans. He's in California. They're from Maine.
Maine.
Oh,
So I started in sporting goods in 1981 in Presque Isle and ended up moving to Rockland, Maine, in a goldsmith that was also owned by them. And the franchise went out of business, and I had opened up my own, basically right next door on Main Street. And we had it for 17 years. We did team sales, large format printing, silk screening, embroidery, and team business too. And my wife came in. She stopped nursing for a while, then came in about the last 5 years and did the bookkeeping and stuff for us. And we kind of got both retired of it. And at 55, we sold it and moved to Florida. And my mother became ill, so we moved back about 10 months later to Maine. And I went to work for my old person I used to work with in Presque Isle. He had a sporting goods store. And then my wife went into back into nursing again in Lewiston. And that's where last place we were, Lewiston.
And your wife has needed a caregiver because?
She went to work, it was 2000, it was right after COVID, 2001, 2021. And basically she just would work all the time. She was there, she'd go to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, get done at 4, go back to work at 7 o'clock at night, work until the next day. So she had a cerebral amyloid angiopath, or CAA. So it was a pretty massive stroke that she had at work. Her blood pressure was like 210 over 160 or 170. And so they called me and said, Mike, you have to come get back and take her to the doctor. I said, well, what's wrong? She says, we think she's having a stroke. I said, Jesus, call the ambulance, you guys. You're a nursing home. Call the ambulance. So I came right down and came, and she spent 8 weeks in the hospital in Auburn. And after that, she came home and wasn't too bad, always in a lot of pain. And of course, along came that she had some osteoporosis that she had in her tailbone and both of her hips. So walking became harder for each time. And then with the badass amyloid protein in her brain, the kind of cause of aging kept getting worse. So I worked a year part-time, just kept going down days so I could be with her, because she was able to ambulate and walk at that time and make her own coffee. But there would be days that there would be, and I never let her cook at all or clean or anything like that. And I was always afraid of her going to the bathroom. And she just come to the point where I just said, I have to stay home. So I had to tell work that I can't work anymore, and I'm sorry about that. So that's when we decided that, well, what the hell, I stay in Maine where it's winter, 7 months out of the year, your chance to fall. We just moved to Florida. So when we moved to Florida, things were going pretty good. The warm weather did wonders for her, which I'm sure you guys know anyway what warm weather does. And she was still able to walk around a little bit, hard time going up the stairs. She has left side deficit too as well. And we were going to PT and OT for that. And she had trouble with urination at that time. So we took her to the urologist, and they had suggested she had a prolapsed bladder. So we took her in for surgery for that, which I really didn't want to do because I know what the surgeries do, and she's been in for a long time. And the prolapse surgery really isn't that much. It's only day surgery. So we took her in at 9. I think we got out about 5 that day, and I thought they had let her out a little early. So I put her in the car, took her home. I think we went to bed about 8:30 because we were both pretty tired. And she had got up out of bed. And I said, Beck, what are you doing? She said, I need to go make some coffee. So I really thought nothing of it. And I get up, and she had a catheter that I was going to take care of for her until Monday when she was going to have it taken out. And she had actually cut it and started pulling on it. And I said, Jesus, Beck, I was afraid that there was going to be some hemorrhaging. So, because I wasn't that familiar with the procedure and what it would do.
Right.
So I called the ambulance. The ambulance came. Instead of taking her to the hospital that we had the procedure done at, she wanted to go to a different one. So we went to Halifax, which is not that good of a hospital, and I'm not afraid of telling anybody about it. She was there for 6 weeks, and all they did was fill her with Predniseg, Ativan, Seroquel. So basically, they didn't treat anything. All they did was kept her asleep.
Right.
And it come to a point where I said, look, I don't know what's going on here, but enough is enough. This isn't what she should have been in for. She just would have had a simple UTI, perhaps after she had the operation. When we got there at the hospital, they had pulled out the Foley, and all the wadding and stuff come out of her vaginal area. And they said, what is this? They didn't even know what it was. So enough was that. And then I said she had to go to rehab so we could drain her from the drugs a little bit. She was on, it was crazy. And a week and a half there, I said, I'm taking her home, period. I'm not listening to anybody else. You take her off these drugs that she'd already started to be weaned off. I can take a lot better care of her than you guys. And that's how we ended up. So it's been a trip and a half, that's for sure. But she's better off now. And then when she was done, because of the sedation for that many weeks, that just made it a lot worse now that she can't walk on her own. Basically, she's about 100% care. She can eat, and I cut up her food for her and stuff. We'll meet her too if you guys want. But other than that, it's been quite a venture, and being in Florida where I really didn't know anybody.
You're all by yourself, yeah.
Right, watch TV and read, basically. Coming here has been a godsend, only because of the fact that I have a yard now where I can actually go in and out of. I can usually go down to the store and leave back for like a half hour and come back if I have to go to the grocery store. I know my daughter's right up the street. She walks down, we do things together, go out to dinner. It's a lot better for her. That's for sure.
So you've created a structure around yourself that's got a helper nearby. It's got a yard where you can,
Yes.
and you're close enough to get to things that you can resupply yourself
Yes.
safely.
And the doctors here are wonderful.
Yeah,
But don't ever trust anybody as far as taking care of a loved one. Make sure you see what they're taking and what they're taking it for, because what they were giving Rebecca was way wrong, and it set her back, and just incredibly. Now she's completely in a wheelchair, and it's crazy. And I
never
blame
send anyone to the hospital without an advocate with them.
right.
It's just not safe, no matter what hospital it is.
Nope.
Thank you for sharing that. Lynn, can you share what's happened in your world? Wait, you're on mute. You're on mute. Unmute. Somehow you're muted.
There
I
it is.
can't tell.
There it
There
is.
we go. Okay.
Found it. Well, it's about 2 months ago now. My mom, who is 90, got a compression fracture in her spine that was incredibly painful. She has osteoporosis. And so my sister, this is all back in Maine. My mom lives in Bangor. She and her husband had moved into senior living 2 years ago. And so she had this fracture. My sister, who lives back there, went to do caregiving, and it turned into a nightmare because they could not control the pain. And so it just got worse and worse and worse. And mom ended up in the hospital, and Susan was there for 10 days. And I kept saying, do you need me to come? Do you need me to come? And she and my mother both said, wait till we need you. And then the call came, we need you now. So I was at work and I shut everything down, and I was on a plane out of LAX 7 hours later.
That is incredible, by the way.
So she and my stepdad, when are in their own home. And when I got there, she was doing better. I brought her home. I had a lot of time to spend with my stepdad, which was good because he died a few days ago. But one of the hardest things was family. It's a
That's
blended.
usually the biggest challenge with caregiving.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So my sister and I are close, and we pulled together. My step siblings, two of them weren't available. The one who was, I didn't have any relationship with initially, and we ended up being a great team and really becoming friends. But on that side of the family, there was a lot of friction going on, and that was a distraction. But I ended up doing 24/7 caregiving for 3 solid weeks. And, and I did have help through part of it. My stepsister was there. And in that time, the original intent was to just get mom better so they could go on with their life. And then, her memory suddenly wasn't as good as it had been. My stepdad was getting more and more feeble. He was 95. And he and I talked a lot, and he was ready to go. He was 95, his body was giving out on him. And he said every time he'd wake up, he'd go, Jesus, I'm still here. He'd be mad about it. So anyway, but I had really, really good time with him, had good time with my mom, but I was I had no idea how stressed I was. I'm a therapist, I'm a Buddhist, I used all my skills, and I was containing a lot of other people and trying to, deal with my folks, but also people who were also involved, and being the calm one. And I ended up setting up a lot of services. We were trying to let them age in place, and it quickly became apparent that it was time for them
Wasn't going to work.
living. So that was going to take time. So I found visiting angels and set them up for twice a day. That wasn't enough. Then we had 24-hour care. But I finally, after about 3 weeks, I was beginning to make mistakes. And I said, you know, I can't do any more right now. And 2 days before I was supposed to fly home, I was on the phone with my folks' doctor, just explaining the situation. And she said, I think you're going to have to stay. And I just broke down and cried. I just, I was at the end of my rope.
Right.
But we got the visiting angels in there, and I did leave. And then the weird stage started where I was out here and I was really, really missing being there. And, I am still involved and I am still helping, but I was intensely there. And even though it wore me out, it was hard to leave and hard to be back here. And then my stepdad started going downhill pretty fast. So they got him set up with hospice. And I think it was 4 days and he's gone.
I'm so glad you had that time with him.
Mhm.
Me too. I wouldn't give that up for the world. He went gently. He was, with it right up until the end. I think he had his last scotch the day that they started the morphine. And
Morphine and scotch go very well together, according to our hospice doctor.
My sister-in-law or my stepsister was concerned that he was going to have morphine and scotch. And I said, Peg, he's in hospice.
Hospice. Give him a cigar too. Just make sure he doesn't drop it.
Right. Whatever he wants is fine.
Uh-huh.
So, but anyway, I wasn't there, and I'm sorry I wasn't there. But he and my mom had a lot of time to say goodbye to each other.
And they were able to, which is such a gift
Yep.
for two people who were ill and seniors. And what an amazing event. And you're right. When you are caregiving and you have to step back, there is a sense of, I just wish I could be back there.
Yeah.
Because you do become part of the process and the people and you get the daily interaction and the sit for the cup of coffee and as hard as it is, you still have that time together.
Yeah.
And I try to live my life too without regret. I don't want to think that I could have done something and that I didn't do it that would cause me regret. And that I just feel better when I don't think I have to live with regret.
Yeah. And it's good to be able to know that in yourself. I work with people with grief as a therapist, and so many are just caught in this. If I had just done this, if I had just known that. And I said,
guilt.
do you have a medical degree? How would you have known that?
And that's one of the things that I tell people is you did the best you could with the knowledge you had in that moment in time with all the best of intentions because you loved them. And nobody could ask for anything more than that.
No.
In yourself.
No, and I had a kind of a shitty childhood too, where my father drank a lot, and when I just found out a few years ago that my father wasn't my biological father, so you get to be 60 years old and find out, no, sorry.
Wow.
So
that's a loss.
Yeah, that's a lot, and I found out through it because my wife's sister, she does genealogy for the Daughters of the American Revolution. Says, well, Mike will do yours for us. Well, sure as shit. Nope, no relation there. But that's why when I got older, I said, I'm not going to live like my parents did. No. I'm not going to do what my parents did. I'm going to try to be a better person, than what my parents were too.
Yeah.
So.
And you treasure the time you've got with your wife. Yeah, Deb.
Yes.
The similarities between both of you, both of you are professionals in and of yourself. And like Jill, like myself, sometimes you have to look at yourself like one of your clients and go, you are going down the tubes, and get the help that you need, if only for a moment. And like you were saying, Lynn, it was very apparent this wasn't going to work, and very apparent this wasn't going to work. And same thing with you, Mike. This worked for just a little bit, and then this happened. And it's a delicate balance, and it's difficult to see yourself and take care of yourself like a third person.
Yes, and
Right?
you just have to keep going. One day is not going to be like the next day.
No.
The next day is not going to be like yesterday.
Right.
So that's what's helped me, not being around, any of my friends or doing, any activities, is that I know that maybe today is the same, but tomorrow will be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And giving yourself the grace to manage that and manage those waves.
And like I say, I struggle with anxiety. I've had it before. Beck had, something that went on, and anxiety is a thing where what the hell causes it? Who knows? Maybe it's stress, maybe it's something else. But I still have a little of that, and all I can do is go down and lay down for a few minutes, and hopefully it goes away, which usually it does.
Yeah.
I think everybody struggles a little bit with something in their life.
Yeah.
Whether it's speaking in front of people, or it's anxiety, or not being able to think you can do a job. I think everybody has a little problems too.
I didn't realize how pressurized and how deeply stressed I was until the last few days, when suddenly I said, my brain is oatmeal. I have set up a whole lot of things here. At one point, my stepsister and I took my stepdad to the neighboring facility where my mom is moving, which is assisted living. And we took a tour, and he approved it. And he's the one that broke the news to my mother. And, so much happened. My mother's moving there next Tuesday. And so things happened so much faster than I'd hoped. But that last couple days, I was just totaled. And when I got home, I thought, well, I'll rest up for a few days and I'll be okay. It's been 3 weeks and I'm still not okay.
No.
It does sometimes feel like a truck has run over you because you've buckled down and buckled down and buckled down, and I got to just keep going.
Yeah.
And I don't even have time to acknowledge all the losses I'm experiencing as we go along, because I got to just keep going. And then when it stops, that void is the exhaustion, the fatigue, the sadness, the gratefulness for being able to be there, but the sadness for not. It does that.
Yeah.
And each, like I said, Lynn, each day is different. Hopefully, it will never pass how you feel, but the feelings will become further back for you a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that you can get by with each day is like that. And I hope the best. It's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
The smartest, the most valuable advice I ever got, because when my mom was dying, it was 2 weeks from diagnosis to death.
Yeah.
And so about at the first week, when we realized she is going to die, I broke down because I didn't think I was doing a very good job communicating with my mom, and I was crying, blah, blah, blah. And the chaplain said, what's going on? And it came down to, I felt a sense of failure. And the chaplain asked point blank, well, have you ever had a mother die before? Has your mother ever died before?
Yeah.
And when it's the humor of it, in the juxtaposition of the question, I went, no. She said, then what are you comparing to for failure? And so I think that's just so important for caregivers. It's easy to compare how beautifully you think and romantically you think it should go, and then what's really happening. And like you said, Mike, if you can do everything without regret,
Well, try. There's always going to be some, but if you try,
sure.
then
I
you'll do better.
get that.
But
But
it's not Hallmark. It's not that Hallmark movie. It's not the Lifetime movie. It's not
No.
the Little Red Shoes.
Mhm.
It's family members who don't get along sometimes, or family that you think is going to be supportive and they're supportive adjacent, or they're just absent, or you really want them to be absent.
Or
And
they get in the way.
absent, or they get in the way, like, please go be absent, right? Please just go do that.
Yeah.
It's all of those things, and it's then at the same time trying to explain to everybody outside the immediate system what's going on when
Mhm.
you really just need to be focused on being in there.
Yeah.
And when you start explaining what's going on, then it's like, oh my God, I'm really doing all that. And then that sort of emphasizes the tiredness and how much is happening,
Yeah.
right?
I, oh,
And life is hard as it is. It doesn't matter whether you have somebody that's dying or somebody that's sick. Life is hard in general too, and it's just all something we have to navigate through.
yeah. One thing that always helps me in situations like this is in Buddhism, there is this idea of impermanence, that everything, mountains wear down, oceans dry up, everything dies and falls apart. And instead of being fatalistic or depressed about that, it just makes you really want to enjoy the hell out of it while it's here.
Yes.
My
Yes.
sister, who is a Christian, was just kind of falling apart, and my dad is not doing well, and I explained that to her. I said, Peg, know the joy in this moment.
Right.
You're with him. When he's gone, be sad, but right now, just they're here.
I'm so grateful for the time I had with my mom just sitting in the backyard serving her breakfast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? And then I'd run over with lunch and found out later she was dumping the lunch and eating the quart of ice cream. But I did enjoy being able to make the pretty lunch for her and be part of that. Nobody told me till afterward.
Too
Yeah.
funny. That's good. I have, if you guys like, I can introduce you to Rebecca if you'd like to meet her.
If
Sure.
she'd like to come on, that'd be great.
All right, let me go. Actually, I'll just take you out in the computer out this way. All right, over.
We could not have done this 10 years ago.
No,
Right.
And I love that.
So great.
I have so many clients that will need to do this in session, and
Mhm.
I get kind of motion sick.
Oh, yeah.
This is how I meet pets for my kids that I see.
Okay. Rebecca,
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi,
This is-
Rebecca.
this is Lynn.
Hello.
This is who I went to school with.
Hi.
And this is Deborah and Jill.
Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for being here.
So I told them that I would introduce you to them. And here she is.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hello.
Although it's 85 here today, Rebecca's a little cold.
I'm
Yeah.
freezing.
Yeah.
We're going to hit 97 here today.
Yeah.
97, that's warm, you guys.
Well,
Yeah.
that's not, that we're not even getting started here in Southern California.
Yeah,
No.
Oh, you're gonna be up to like 108 pretty soon.
Oh, I know. They say the summers here are brutal. I thought they were bad in Florida. But
No.
I guess they're worse here. There's more humidity, I guess. I don't know.
You're right on the river. You're going to have all of the heat. But I'm
Yes.
glad you got your daughter there. Lynn,
Yes.
what are some of the lessons you learned from being a caregiver and navigating the losses in caregiver?
Well, it was kind of chapter 2 for me. My dad, when I was 19, I was in college but living at home, and my dad had a very serious breakdown and ultimately committed suicide. And in northern Maine in 1978, there was no help, and there was a
Wow.
lot of stigma. So we just kind of encapsulated, and my mother and I went through that intense experience with him. And at the end of it, I had this, it may sound weird, but he was so sick and there was no help. And when he went, I was relieved for him,
Mhm.
and my mother and I both came away with the idea that we had done every damn thing we could do. And that's the way I'm feeling in this situation. I've done every damn thing I can do. And like Mike says, try not to feel like, oh, I could have done one more thing.
Right.
You know, I
Because
couldn't do that
it
anymore.
just makes it worse. It just makes it
Yeah.
worse. You
It
have-
does.
Mhm.
It does.
So it doesn't really work that well.
Yep. Yeah. Be in the moment, appreciate what you have in the moment, and just do the best you can.
Yeah.
And find some humor where you can.
Yeah.
Yes. Like for me, well, since here we have, I don't know, somebody let some parakeets out 4 or 5 years ago, and now there's like 8 or 10 of them right around the house. So I've been trying to teach them how to swear and say hands up. So every time I see them on the wire, I say, and I keep repeating it. So someday they'll start saying it.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah, it's the little things like that, that you can humor yourself.
Yeah.
That makes you better too.
I will tell you, I had a hospice patient long ago, and she lived with her son and daughter-in-law, and they had a parrot, and she taught the parrot, unbeknownst to them, she taught it to say, help me, I'm dying," in her voice. And so the day that she did die, I was there. We waited for the mortuary. I walked out with her. I went back in to make coffee for everybody. And in the kitchen came her voice. And
Oh,
she's been driven away by the mortuary. Help me, I'm dying.
that's
That's funny.
That's good.
Yes, she made the best of it. She had a wicked
Yeah.
sense of humor.
Yeah.
Yep. Wicked awesome.
Wicked awesome.
Wicked awesome on the East Coast saying, right?
too true.
Yeah.
Mike, what is a lesson you've learned in navigating the losses the two of you have experienced together with this?
That you can't take anything for granted for life. The sun comes up, which you can pretty much count on each day. But other than that, we got hit from one day to the next. I mean, one day Rebecca was at work and I was at work, and it seems like the next day we're not. And I realized, well, that can happen to anybody. So you have to enjoy the time, enjoy what you do as much as you can. And I just don't help Rebecca. For me, she was so loved by her patients that I try to think of them as well, because she used to stay with somebody who was dying, which there was a lot of death for her. That she would stay in their room until they passed, talk to them until they passed, and then she would go and open up the window so their soul could.
Yeah.
I love that.
And she would do that numerous times. So I do it for them too. I do it for those people that she touched through her life.
I'm so glad. Rebecca, you got a good guy there, don't you?
Yes, very good.
I'm sorry about the challenges, and I'm glad that you are still together and you are making the very best of this together. Lynn and Mike, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. You can find Lynn here in California. She's at Central Counseling Services. She's amazing, I just have to tell. Mike is in New Orleans and making his best life there with Rebecca. Deb and I will be in Wisconsin together starting Sunday at the International Death, Grief, and Bereavement Conference. She's already made my Rice Krispie treats. I'm so excited.
Make sure to have some Kringle when you're in Wisconsin.
Oh,
Some what?
Kringle. Kringle. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking. I'll tell you, Jill.
Okay,
Yes.
can I have it?
No.
Yes.
Probably not. No, I'm celiac. Deb will have it for me.
No, if you're
Yeah.
celiac, probably not.
We're going to go have ice cream at the Pearl in La Crosse.
Yeah.
That's,
And also, if you can get very, very, very fresh cheese curds, they're worth it.
yes.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
exactly where to go get those. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you again for being here. And Lynn, you're also an author. Do you want to give yourself a little plug?
Well, I'm a fantasy author. I've got 11 books out. You can find them on Amazon. The publisher is Random House. And they're fantasy and written for grown-ups. Years ago, when people would say, "Oh, do you write for kids?" That was the assumption. I would say, "No, I write adult fantasy," and that didn't come out right at all. So, what a different impression than what I was doing.
I love it. I
Yes.
love it.
Then make sure to say hi to Doug for me too.
I will. I
Good
will.
to catch up again.
Really good to see you. Right?
Yes. Good to
Thank
see
you both for being here. I'm going to take us off live. If you guys want to hang out, we'll be backstage.
Sure.
Have a great week, everybody. And Deb and I will check in. Maybe we'll do an extra live while we're in Wisconsin together and grab a few people to join us.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be great.
It would. We'll see everybody next week on Friday.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye now.
Bye bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.